the top Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Menendez, you at a Foreign Relations hearing yesterday were raising concerns, as Nancy Pelosi does today on the House side, that there have not been briefings. Now, there will be, for the first time today, we're told, at 3 o'clock today, a meeting for the so-called Gang of Eight. That's the top leaders and the Intel Committee chair and vice chair. You would not be included in that. And there are questions from Lindsey Graham, the Armed Services Committee, as well as Foreign Relations. Why not brief more people on what is really going on when we are at such a boiling point, potentially, with Iran?
Well, Andrea, that's my question. That's why I've been pounding away for the last 2 days at the Foreign Relations Committee, on the Senate floor, in every interview, in every avenue that I have, that not only I, as the ranking Democrat, and every member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee should be briefed, but from my view, all 100 senators should be briefed. This is a critical moment. And as your setup piece had, the possibilities of a miscalculation by either side are a dangerous one. And so understanding what the intelligence is, the analysis, testing the veracity of that analysis is critically important, because otherwise we are asked to make foreign policy and national security decisions while we're flying in the blind, and that's never good policy. So I now hear that possibly Tuesday in the afternoon there will be a all senators briefing by the administration. I hope that that is true, and I hope that that's not too late.
It seems to me there's a real breakdown between this White House and Congress on a lot of levels. There haven't been briefings on the China, trade war. There haven't been briefings to a lot of different committees. Is that the result, do you think, of the hostility towards the Mueller investigation, a lot of other things that are going on? Is this just an attitude issue? Have you talked to Republican colleagues? What's going on here? Are they being briefed and you're not?
Well, overwhelmingly, many of my colleagues, Republican colleagues in private, tell me they grumble about the lack of information as well. I think publicly, Senator Graham, who is the chairman of the Appropriations Foreign Operations, a critical element of our foreign policy, hasn't been briefed, for example, about the embassy drawdown. I read it in the paper, so did he. That's no way to conduct policy. This, in my 4 administrations that I've served under since I came to the House of Representatives in 1992 and then to the Senate, this is the most opaque, unwilling administration in terms of sharing information. I don't believe that it's just the Mueller report. I believe that they have a disdain for Congress's role. They do not appreciate the constitutional role, and they really seek to thwart it. And I have found this the most challenging in 27 years of doing foreign policy in terms of getting critical information to make very important decisions.
I have to say, just to be transparent to our viewers, this is important. In all my years, this has been the most difficult challenge, the intelligence challenge. We learned our lessons in 2003. We did as a nation, the press, the Secretary of State, all of us, the intelligence community, at being misled and going into war on false premises. And there's a real determination not to let that happen again, but we don't know who's telling the truth here. Are you going to trust the administration, the State Department, the agencies, the Iranians, Israeli intelligence, European intelligence? It is a real conundrum, and I wanted to play a little bit of your exchange with the Undersecretary, Andrea for Arms Control, about the New START agreement, because this is a very important issue. You were clearly frustrated. Let me play that.
If New START expires, could Russia target the United States with hundreds or perhaps even thousands of additional nuclear warheads?
That's a good question for Russia, Senator.
No, it's a good question for you. I disdain that the State Department has when they come here. I don't appreciate it. I'm asking for legitimate questions with answers so that I can make policy decisions. I'm not asking Russia about our national defense. I'm asking you.
Yes, Senator, as our staff was up here...
Is it possible that, in fact, if there is no New START, that, in fact, Russia could aim hundreds or thousands of new weapons? Is that possible?
That's a hypothetical, Senator, and I'm not going to answer that.
Oh, my God.
What was going on there?
I don't know, Andrea. Let me just first say that for a senior State Department official to actually tell me that I should go ask Russia about what their intentions in terms of defending our national security is about as outrageous as it gets. But it is that type of attitude. First of all, we rarely get administration officials before the committee. I've been urging the chairman to do that. I'm proud to see that he got the undersecretary there. But when we do, it's that type of attitude, which is, it's impossible for me. I'm trying to determine, the question was very simple. I'm trying to determine what flows from the lack of a New START agreement or a nuclear arms agreement. If there is no New START agreement or no continuation of the New START agreement, then what potentially flows from that? So we can calculate, what does that mean in terms of nuclear forces, what our posture would have to be, how much more would we maybe have to go into an arms race, what would that cost? These are all legitimate questions. To be told that's a good question for Russia is pretty outrageous. And secondly, on your premise that you began your question, I think it's an incredibly important one, who to believe on intelligence. I voted against the Iraq War. I think it was one of the worst decisions that the United States ever made. It was based on false intelligence. There were no weapons of mass destruction. I don't want such a moment now, and what I want is to test all of the veracity, the depth, and to what degree do our intelligence agencies actually say that their intelligence is verified at. I think that's critically important to test the mettle of the veracity and accuracy of that information before we make any decisions moving forward. And lastly, I think what the administration really needs now, and I'm glad to see the president, at least in this regard, seems to be headed in somewhat of that direction, even if not necessarily in the best way, is we need a diplomatic surge. If you have maximum pressure against Iran, it's to ultimately get them to negotiate. But if you continue to apply maximum pressure and don't open a pressure valve, i.e. negotiations, then you have a pressure cooker that will explode.
Senator Bob Menendez, thank you very much. When you get answers, let us know.